You know, you get to stand up to do it.
Facing the right direction, right?
Yeah.
This end goes out.
Yeah, keep it that way. You gotta get me in the camera. That's in the video.
Okay.
This would be me talking. Here. Am I in the video?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, what I wanted to talk to you about was this project that I've had with the watermelon. I was growing watermelon in a container, a large 100-gallon container. And I found out later that 100-gallon in the, I guess we say the nursery business, is not the same as 100 gallons of, say, water. They have a different way that they measure gallons or something. I didn't quite understand this, but this is something to keep in mind maybe whenever you're...
It is filming, right? You pushed the go.
The red button is lit. It should be recording, or not lit, but...
The big white circle thing.
Okay.
I don't see no...
I think we're recording. I hope we're recording. If we're not recording, just ignore everything I just said.
Well, they can't.
So anyway, this project had some successes and some failures. We started off, it was a little slow at first when I started off. Now I used plants that had already been growing. I bought them in a
Buckeye.
from a store. The watermelon were already growing. And I used the alpaca compost with peat moss and a little bit of vermiculite. That was the basic soil recipe that I've had. I think I probably should have added some amenities, maybe done a soil test at the beginning of the season before I did anything, and then got the soil correct before I did this. But I did not, I didn't even know I was going to have a garden this year. I didn't know that I was going to be physically able to do anything. In fact, I had to have an awful lot of help with this, which is one of the reasons why I went with the the container garden for watermelon, was because I couldn't dig a hole. I didn't want to ask somebody to dig a hole for me, because I was going to have trouble getting somebody to do that. Now, next year, what would I do different? Probably, as far as soil, I'd do sand. I'd put some sand in the soil, and probably some fresher manure, and again, I'd do a soil test. So anyway, here's the way this went down. At first, they were kind of slow. The temperatures were kind of low in back in May, which is normally when you want to start your watermelon in this area about May 10th, and the temperatures were kind of low. They didn't grow very much at first, and then by the time June rolled around, then the temperatures started to move up. They started growing. They grew real fast. They started putting on some flowers. They started to, not long after putting on the flowers, they put on some watermelon, and then the vines quit growing. Now, that's not my experience for growing watermelon in the past. In the past, I've known them to continue to grow vines well after the watermelon were on, and also by the time I got the watermelon on, the vines weren't really long enough, I don't think, to support the full size that these watermelon could reach. I was expecting 25-pound watermelons, I got about 9 or 10 pound watermelon. So that's where I am with that. I spoke about some of the things I would do differently. One of the other things I would do differently, I probably next year would use smaller containers, and I think I overplanted. I planted like nine of these watermelon plants in this 100-gallon container. That was too much. That's too crowded. Probably about half that many would have been plenty. And I say plenty as in they overcrowded. I think that may have been one of the problems. So next year, another way you can overcrowd them is not just where they're planted, but as the vines grow out, they start competing with each other for sunlight. So next year, what I want to do is go to a smaller container, maybe down to 50 or 60 gallon, and then we'll cut the overall quantity in half. Maybe go, if say I had 60-gallon containers, I might go 3 in each of 2 60-gallon containers, and then separate them apart by about 5 or 6 feet so that the vines are not competing with each other. Now I will say also this, one of the things when they quit growing was when I had to switch over to municipal water. Prior to that, I had been able to get plenty of natural water. The rain was providing them with all the water they needed. And I'll tell you, I quit. We started getting rain again recently, and I'm starting to pick up some natural vine. The vine growth has picked up again, and they look healthy again. The new vines, but they're too small. It's too late to get anything out of that. So I'm not sure what the answer to that is. It could be the chlorine that's in the water. A lot of municipal water will have chlorine in it, and a lot of gardeners try to get the chlorine out of the water by letting it evaporate for 24 hours. That's one thing I could do about that. I don't think I could filter it so much. Maybe, possibly I could, but well, that's a possibility. Some kind of filtering could be done. But I think more than anything, if I could capture some rainwater and store it for when I need it, that might help. Because then, obviously, I could give them the rainwater. Another thing, this methodology I used, I fill the containers up with water and let it drain out. This is another reason why I think I should go to the smaller containers, because when I have these big containers, it's hard for the water to get into the center of the container. So when you're trying to water them, you're letting that fill up and soak in is the idea. And then it's got to drain out, because if you don't let it drain out, you'll have to deal with mosquitoes and such, and you don't want that. So by going to the smaller containers, I think I'll be able to get the water more into the center of the container. So these are just some of the thoughts that I've had. Oh, and by the way, the watermelon were delicious. They were very sweet. They tasted like watermelon. They were seed watermelon, and as anybody that knows anything about watermelon will tell you, a seed watermelon tastes delicious, and a seedless watermelon does not. The seedless watermelon tastes almost like a cucumber, and they are awful. I just cannot stand this thing. So That's why I even mess with, because sure, I could go to the store and buy a seedless watermelon, but a lot of times it's hard to find the seeded watermelon, and sometimes they'll tell you that you're buying a seeded watermelon and you're not buying a seeded watermelon, you're buying a seedless one, so it can be very frustrating. If I had a good source for seeded watermelon, I'd probably go that way instead of messing with any of this. Although I do think this is a very interesting experiment, and I was hoping that I was making a project here that would make it easy for anybody to grow watermelon. You know, yeah, I used the alpaca manure in this experiment. You don't have to. There's other sources that you can use. I would recommend that you compost it if you're using manure, to compost it thoroughly before using it. Make sure that it's safe to use. This has been around for about 3 or 4 years now that I've been using, but it was composted before I even started using it in my garden. Anyway, and then also, I just kind of a side note, at the same time I was having trouble with the watermelon, I was also having trouble with my tomatoes, and I did add some fertilizer to them. I think there was a soil deficiency there. We were short on potassium, I think, and so I added some potash, and then there was one set of tomatoes that was growing very healthy, and then it wasn't producing any flowers. Well, it had flowers, but they were unhealthy flowers. So I gave it the potash. Next thing you know, I got tomatoes growing on it, and they're doing very good. In fact, they're the plants that are giving me the most tomatoes right now. So soil, your soil nutrients are very important for container gardening, because you know, with the soil in the ground, you know, you might just have a mix of everything in there and it's fine, you know. Whereas what you've got in your container is whatever you put in there, and there's nothing. If it's not in there, it's not in there. You're just out of that. So yeah, I'll probably be checking the potassium real close next year on all of my soil before I even plant. So anyway, I guess that's about all I have to say on here. If that's not enough, just put a comment down there, and whether you subscribe or not don't really matter to me. But I do appreciate watching my videos if you did, and come back again and watch some more if you want. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye now. Now I wonder how much of this.
Turn it off.